You're watching the ACAC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now. Welcome to episode 10 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Fred, founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering 30 schools across Northeast Indiana and parts of Elkhart County. That includes the ACAC, the NECC, and the NE8. And so, we are about to officially conclude the month of September. We're about to enter into October, which means we are very close to the postseason for the rest of the fall sports. In fact, girls golf is roughly 99% completed for the 2024 season. We will talk about girls golf in a matter of moments. We will also be talking with two football coaches later on the show to preview the Week 7, two very big Week 7 matchups that we will be previewing at Around the Northeast Corner. So, without further ado, let's get to the talk around the corner. And I think the best way we can start the talk around the corner here this time is to discuss girls golf regionals, which exclusively, at least for our area, it was just the Noble Hawk regional, which technically East Noble would be considered the host of that regional for girls golf. And for the most part, it didn't go exactly as many of these schools and golfers were hoped. And you knew at this point in the season it was going to be very difficult to get past regionals just because of the parity and how many good teams there are in this regional. And if you look at the East Noble regional as a whole, it was a very difficult regional, and only 3 teams being able to qualify for this regional tells you there was a lot of parity in this field with Northridge, DeKalb, Homestead, Carroll, Concordia, Warsaw, Northwood, Leo, Culver Academies, Norwell, Concord, Wabash, Bluffton, Southern Wells, South Adams. Every team in that regional is very good here in 2024, and that's not including some of the individual golfers that made it despite their teams not being able to get past sectionals, right? So you had Adeline Cutting of Huntington North. You had Emery Laughlin of Fremont. You had Lily Oberon of East Noble, Isabel Blosser and Mallory McGowan of Fairfield, Ella Hockemeyer of Belmont, and London Smith of Adams Central. But when you look at the regional in terms of the results, Northridge won its first ever team regional with a score of 330, edging out DeKalb, who scored a 331. They had not won a team regional championship in about 15 years, but DeKalb has been to state numerous times, even when they don't win a regional. So DeKalb has been in this stage before, and thankfully for DeKalb, they are going to advance to state despite falling just one stroke shy of a regional championship at 331 points. Homestead also advanced to state with a score of 337, edging out Carroll, who also had a 337. Concordia coming up short at 351. Warsaw at 354 falls to 6th. Northwood at 358 falls to 7th. Leo falls to 8th at 370. Individually speaking, Taylor Larkins of Carroll, she won the regional individual championship via tiebreaker by a score of 72. Sophie Richmond of Northwood scored a 72. Brianna Knoll of Homestead scored a 72. And then just behind those 3, Alex Reshley of Northridge scored a 76. And then Paige Williams of DeKalb scored a 77. Obviously, Knoll, Reshley, and Williams are going to make it to the state no matter what because their teams are heading to state finals. But Larkins, Richmond both advanced despite both Carroll Northwood failing to make it to state. And then Abby Peterson of Warsaw just edging out Lily Oberon of East Noble to get to the state finals. And unfortunately for Lily Oberon, despite a valiant effort, scoring a 78, she saw her season come to a close. And so now DeKalb's the only team left here for girls golf. And that's just how things go with girls golf state tournament. But we want to wish DeKalb the best of luck as they compete in the state finals. Hopefully at some point I'm able to bring in a couple of girls from the DeKalb girls golf team to discuss their season. I think it'd be worthy to talk some girls golf with some of the individuals that had a tremendous season for the DeKalb Lady Barons. We also want to talk about the ACAC Volleyball Tournament that took place on Saturday, which was yesterday at the time of this recording, hosted by Heritage High School. And as you know, with the volleyball conference tournaments, they are done in these pool divisions. So you have your round robin, and then how you do your round robin determines whether or not you advance to the championship match, which ended up being Adams Central versus Woodland for the conference championship. Adams Central took set one, Woodland edged AC in set two, and then the Jets win the third and decisive set by the score of 15-10 to repeat as ACAC tournament champions for the first time in program history. And so the Jets win their sixth conference tournament championship in the 52nd annual ACAC Volleyball Tournament. And they now tie Woodland for the third most all time in the history of the conference, trailing only to Heritage and former conference member Leo. Leo's now in the NEA, of course. We want to first talk about football. And with football, we want to go ahead and briefly highlight some of the matchups that occurred in week number 6. So we'll start with the ACAC. Adams Central, despite not playing their best football, including a situation where they were tied with South Adams at the half, the Jets pulled away with a 20-point win, 27-7. Once again, Aaron Hershey with another strong performance, rushing for over 110 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Jets remain undefeated in ACAC play, 3-0 in conference play. They have a game in hand on the Bluffton Tigers. Heritage defeats Tipton 21-7 behind 2 touchdowns from Brandon Walter. And then Lucas Weber with over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown of his own to help the Heritage Patriots defeat the Tipton Blue Devils on the road. Woodland, now this one was a little bit of a surprise. Woodland shuts out Jay County 21-0, to which Drew Fleet recorded 2 touchdowns to preserve the 21-0 win for the Fighting Rohrbacher's and the Woodland Warriors. And so Woodland is at the 500 mark. We'll talk about their upcoming matchup later on the show. And then let's go ahead and go to the NECC for week 6 recap. Angola dominates Fairfield 47-8. Hawk Hasselmoon contributing to 6 combined touchdowns. I believe it was 3 on the ground, 2 in the air, and then you had that pitch 6 for the Angola Hornets as they defeat the Fairfield Falcons 47-8 to snap I believe it's a 2-game schneid. And so now Angola goes into a rare situation on Saturday. They're going to make the long drive to Avon to take on winless Owen Valley. And Angola is in a scenario where they can go into that matchup against Garrett in week 8 on a 2-game winning streak. We'll talk about that briefly later in the show. Busco shuts out Fremont 18-0. Angelo Inasili coming up just shy of 100 yards, but still productive nevertheless. I think he might have had a touchdown in this game as well. Wes Ott doing a little bit of everything as a receiver in terms of converting and special teams. As a kickoff returner, he also had, I believe it was 13 tackles, 6 TFLs, as Busco shuts out the Fremont Eagles. Eastside ends their losing streak, their 4-game losing streak, with a 26-13 win over Prairie Heights, to which their quarterback, Dove, ran for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns to prevail. The win for the Eastside Blazers, who are now 1-1 divisional play. They got 2 more games to go against their division, which they will start this week against Fremont at home, and then they will go to Central Noble in week number 8, seeing they can end divisional play on a high note. Garrett defeats West Noble 17-6. They had 2 defensive stops in the first half, to which West Noble was denied of a touchdown both tries. West Noble had a red zone opportunity in the first quarter. They had another one late in the second quarter, to which Garrett's defense was strong the whole game, and West Noble had to kick field goals, to which they converted. But it was critical because after the second field goal, on the ensuing kickoff, Alex Guzman returns at 94 yards for a touchdown, and Garrett never looked back from there. In the second half, they outgained West Noble in total yards, 188-21. Trey Schisler had over 80 yards passing in the first half. I'm not sure if he had more than 20 yards passing in the second half alone. Seth Pruitt was held to 33 rushing yards in the game. He did not reach the end zone, as you obviously know. And worthy of note here, like Seth Pruitt actually had an opportunity to take it to the end zone on that second red zone opportunity. Then Calder Hefty comes out with a shoestring tackle. Pruitt trips up. He's not able to run into the end zone. and Garrett gets to stop from there. And when I say stop, I mean holding West Noble to 3 points on both red zone drives. You might as well just say it's a stop for Garrett, because Garrett could have been down 14-0 this game, and for Garrett to be able to fight and overcome that slow start against West Noble really just shows just how this year has been for the Garrett Railroaders, who are now 2 games away from clinching and winning the Big School Divisional Championship. We'll talk about the upcoming matchup later in the show. And then Lakeland defeats Central Noble 55-14. Braden Holbrook threw for over 270 yards. I think it was 277 yards, 6 TD passes, just 1 pick in that game against Central Noble. Keanu Royal had 4 catches for 190 yards and 4 touchdowns to lead the Lakers to a dominant win in Albion. We'll talk about the NECC game of the week later in the show. We will also be talking with the head coach of the Lakeland Lakers, Ryan O'Shea, as he will talk about his Lakeland team and preview the Week 7 matchup, which I believe is their homecoming game against the West Noble Chargers. And then lastly, we want to get to the Northeast 8 real quick. The NE8 was not very memorable, we'll just say, for the Northeast 8. I believe every game was a shutout in Week 6. Yes, it was. And no game was more surprising in terms of shutouts than Huntington North shutting out the Cal 21-0. The Vikings defense gets it done. They are 4-2 on the season for the first time, I believe, in 16 years. And now the Vikings have an opportunity to win 5 games for the first time in over a dozen years. And the Vikings may very well finish in the top half of the conference standings when nobody even thought Huntington North would even have a chance to finish as well as they've done so far this season. Looking at other scores, Leo dominates Belmont 51-0, to which Escuera had a couple of touchdown passes. He completed 83% of his passes, which he did not throw very much in this game. Leo also ran for about 325 yards on the ground for the Lions. East Noble shuts out Norwell 42-0. Dylan Krell had 156 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He also had a 19-yard fumble recovery for another TD as East Noble dominates the Norwell Knights. And then lastly, New Haven losing by 70 points to Columbia City. They set a new single-game program record, scoring 70 points in a 70-0 win over New Haven, to which the Columbia City Eagles now have 3 games, scoring 60 or more points for the first time in program history, and to which Gavin Smith had 2 pick sixes. One was a 100-yard return for a touchdown. And then Columbia City, again, the main guys, the usual, Fazio, Stratton Fuller, Trace Parrish, the same guys we've been talking about all year at Columbia City. They contributed once again for the Eagles. Looking at some upcoming matchups real quick. This week for the NEA, Belmont is at New Haven. Somebody is going to get their first win of the season. You would think New Haven's the favorite. They have been banged up this year. You have to wonder after getting, well, let's just say they were completely annihilated by Columbia City. You got to hope that this was going to be that motivation for New Haven to have a good week this week. They just they haven't been playing good football lately, and a couple times this year they've been snake bitten by their own mistakes. Can New Haven finally have a decent enough football game to win this game? I think they're going to be favored this game. They should win this game, but you never, ever can guarantee that when you're winless at this point in the season. Belmont has now lost 28 straight football games. Again, we are getting into Central Noble territory, and if things don't change quickly for Belmont, they are going to surpass Central Noble's 30-game losing streak. So this is definitely an interesting time for these two programs, as one of these two teams will get their first win of the season. Columbia City at East Noble. That is the NEC game of the week at around the Northeast corner, one of the biggest games of the year. You've got Columbia City's offense with that flexbone offense with Stratton Fuller, wide receiver, Grayson Bradbury, quarterback, Trace Parrish, and Landon Fazio being their top guys in the backfield all season long. In Gavin Smith becoming a defensive playmaker for this Columbia City team. They got playmakers all across the field for the Eagles. Now they're going to have to do this against this East Noble team that's been winning games through defense all season long. We talked about Logan Haddon. We talked about Pace Segui. We're talking about Dylan Krell being the MVP of this East Noble team. You got Riley Biddle, who has been a riddle for most teams this season as a quarterback and in his play at safety. You have Landon Swatter and Mason Trish at wide receiver. You got Alex Brennan and tight end. This East Noble team is very talented. And I think you've got two very, very talented teams, two teams hungry for a conference championship. But Columbia City is going to have to go into Kendallville in a ruckus environment, an environment that's been very difficult for Columbia City over the years. And they're going to have to figure out how to get a win in Kendallville against this East Noble defense. And it's going to be a factor of, can Columbia City's offense find the end zone against one of the best defenses in all of Northeast Indiana. You have DeKalb at Norwell. Norwell is banged up right now. I believe their quarterback, Caden Castle, was hurt in the East Snowball game. There's some question marks on where the health of Castle is going into this week. And so Norwell having some injuries right now is not a good sign right now for Norwell, as they're taking on I would say at this point, a pretty upset DeKalb team right now. They have not played good football lately, and I'm sure Coach Wilcox is not pleased with DeKalb's performance up to this point. I would imagine DeKalb's going to be very motivated to try to get this win here at the Courtyard in Ossian. So this is a tough matchup on paper for the Norwell Knights. And then Huntington North at Leo. This is going to be a telling game for Huntington North to see whether or not the Vikings belong with the big boys of the NE8. They've shown they can beat the teams of their competition, but right now, this is a big test going to Leo against this powerful Lions offense, to which they have a square quarterback. They got Nathan Foster, running back. You got Landon Hepner, who's all over the field for them as their corner, receiver, running back, somebody on special teams. He's been all over the field for Leo all season long as the Army commit. You got Brock Schott at tight end and defensive end. He is going to Miami, Florida, out of the ACC. And so Huntington North's got a major task right now trying to win a football game here against that powerful Leo defense and that running attack that Leo's known for. Huntington North's got to take care of the football if they're going to win this game. When they take care of the football and they're executing offensively, they have been a good team. But when they're making mistakes and they're turning the ball over, they have not been good. And so which Huntington North team we're going to see is going to be a huge, huge factor into whether or not they can make this a game on Friday night. We go to the Northeast Corner Conference, and beginning with Central Noble with Churubusco, which I would say on paper, Busco's the heavy favorite in that matchup against the Cougars. Central Noble it's a young team. They just have not been good this year. It's a down year for Central Noble. I would be very shocked if Central Noble wins this game on Friday. And this is coming from somebody that went to Central Noble. So Churubusco should win this game. Fremont and Eastside, this one's not as clear-cut. Fremont has shown to be a pesky team. They've shown some fights this year, especially on defense. The question with Fremont is, can they find the end zone? They have been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde on that part this year. They're averaging only 10 points per game. They've been shut out 3 times this year. So it's been feast or famine for the Fremont offense, but they've shown that when they find the end zone, they have the defense to compete with teams. Eastside cannot look past this Fremont team, and they got to hope that maybe with some health, maybe some renowned confidence, maybe Eastside can put a little bit of October magic into perspective here. Garrett and Fairfield, Garrett's physicality and that power run attack has permeated a momentous season for Garrett, and now they are halfway there to a divisional championship. They got to go to Goshen, take on the Falcons, who, let's just say, they got humbled by Angola last week. They need a big bounce back game in the worst way possible. But they did compete with Garrett last year. It went down to that fourth quarter. Garrett came back to win that game 22-19 in Garrett. Now they got to go to Fairfield and got to hope they can repeat some of that success from the first 6 games into this week, as Garrett hopes to clinch at least a share of the divisional championship. Woodland is at Prairie Heights. That's another intriguing matchup between the Warriors and the Panthers. Both teams have shown a lot of improvements this year. They both can run the football. Can throw a little bit at times, although more so with Prairie Heights than Woodland, mainly because of Woodland's scheme being more of the power T. Prairie Heights will spread the ball a little bit more. But I'm very intrigued to see which of these two teams can come out on top here. Obviously, Woodland will be seen as the favorite just because of the talent. But Prairie Heights has been competitive this year. This is not an easy win for Woodland here in 2024. And then Angola versus Owen Valley. Owen Valley's winless this year. Angola will be the heavy favorites this week. I will be shocked if Angola doesn't win that game. And then lastly, you have West Noble Lakeland. That's the NECC game of the week. Almost was the ANEC game of the week, but Columbia City East Noble had other ideas. So, West Noble, we know what they are. We know they're going to score points when they have their opportunities. We know they're going to run the football. They've mostly done well on that all year, led by Seth Pruitt at running back. They have Fernando Macias in the backfield. They got the Richardson kid. That's a nice athlete at West Noble as well. Trey Schisler can run the football as well as throw the ball at a pretty solid rate. They got some weapons on that team led by Mikhail Bottles at wide receiver and Xavier Yates, which Xavier is one of the best safeties in all of this area. West Noble's defense, they were good. West Noble's defense was good last week, but they just couldn't score enough points. That was the difference between winning and losing last week. The defense should be able to keep West Noble in this game and at least contain the weapons of Lakeland, to which Lakeland's offense has been very good, led by Brandon Holbrook at quarterback. And we know Holbrook's going to be a Division I quarterback at the next level. You got Carson Mickham, who's going to be a college name, whether it's in football or baseball or maybe both, perhaps. Mickham's one of the best all-around players in this area, particularly with the NECC. He also can kick. So you know his versatility is going to be crucial this week for the Lakeland Lakers. You got Keenan Royal, who's one of the top breakout stars in the NECC. He's been a top receiver threat all season long. He's been a dynamic player for the Lakeland Lakers, but also his defense quietly having a great season as well. He's had a couple of pick sixes. He's been one of the top leaders in tackles for the Lakeland Lakers. Keenan Royal is just a dynamic player that I think gets very little recognition whatsoever because of the fact Lakeland is outside of the Fort Wayne area, per se, quote unquote. And so Lakeland definitely not getting a lot of attention, I think, compared to last year, just because of where West Noble's at right now and where Garrett's at this year. Lakeland kind of flying under the radar just a little bit. Their defense has shown to be capable of being an impact in games when it's effective. And right now, Lakeland's defense has been their best offense for the Lakers this year. This should be a fun matchup in LaGrange. And then lastly, we want to get to the ACAC real quick. Let me get to that real quick. Here we go. So week 7, Heritage at Bluffton. That's the ACAC game of the week. Fun matchup between the Patriots and the Tigers. Both teams graduated a lot from the previous season. They reloaded for this season and the next and in the season to come. Heritage, still a senior-heavy team, but a very talented team, no less. The depth of Heritage has been very strong of late. Eli Tagula's quarterback continues to have a great sensational season. Nasir Martin had a good game the last few games. You had Lucas Weber having a strong game in the backfield for Heritage. Rain Walter, the career leader in interceptions at Heritage, one of the top wide receiver threats and DB threats in the ACAC. Litchfield, one of the top athletes in the ACAC. Charlie Riddle, probably the top offensive lineman in the ACAC. Taking on a Bluffton team that not only can run the football, but they now have the ability to throw the football, led by Axton Best, one of the top and rising stars in this area. Is he can run the football, but he also has a tremendous vision, and he has shown some leadership even at his age. You've got Streveler, who's been his top receiver, Aaron Streveler, as a wide receiver, and also he's a corner on defense. You got the backfield duel of Kamel Moore and Cooper Craig, although lately it's been Cooper Craig carrying the load in the backfield for the Bluffton Tigers, but both have been very capable of being productive for the Bluffton Tigers. They got a strong front line, even though it's mostly inexperienced compared to last year. Griffin Morgan's their lone returning starter on defense, and he's been one of the top has been one of their captains at Bluffton, one of the top defensive players up front in the ACAC. Should be a fun matchup down in Bluffton. South Adams and Jay County, both teams coming off of disappointing week 6 performances, especially for Jay County, and an unexpected 21-point loss to Woodland. One has to wonder if the homecoming had anything to do with this situation. One has to wonder if perhaps the situation with the school because of the weather, maybe that played a factor. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for Jay County, but the point being is it was not a good performance against the Woodland Warriors. They still have an opportunity, though, to have a winning, at least have a 500 season and looking to bounce back. South Adams team seeking their first conference win of the season. Adams Central hosting Southern Wells. That should be a win for the Jets. No offense to Southern Wells, but Adams Central is Adams Central. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Woodland is at Prairie Heights. A lot of interesting matchups in week 7. It'll be interesting to see where things are at in terms of the high school football scene, as we are now just 3 weeks away from the state tournament. And speaking of the state tournament, as we're recording this podcast, the soccer state pairings are going to be released right now, at least at the time of this recording. I'm actually going to have a separate episode just for the soccer parents. So be on the lookout for a brief overview of the sectional pairings. Obviously, there will be a preview that will actually have me breaking down each of the sectionals, and I do maybe some predictions along the way. Real quick, let's go ahead and look at the upcoming matchups coming up for volleyball. Let's start off with the ACAC. They had a great weekend for the ACAC tournament. Now we shift over to the final couple weeks of the regular season. We begin on Monday, Heritage at Columbia City. Heritage right around 500. They have been competitive. They've had some close losses along the way. They had a tough tournament on Saturday, especially with the fact they lost to Southern Wells during that conference tournament. They always take on a Columbia City team that's had some struggles this season. It's been an up and down season for Columbia City. Both teams showing some capabilities, but also they've had their struggles. Should be an interesting matchup down in Columbia City. Bluffton and New Haven. Bluffton starting to find some wins of late. Now they're 7-13. They're going to take on a New Haven team that's 11-11 on the season. Should be an interesting matchup at Armstrong Arena. And then you got Southern Wells hosting Tri-Central. Tri-Central is winless. Southern Wells, the most wins ever for the program. They have 11 wins. And we're still a couple weeks left in the regular season. Southern Wells may have their first ever winning season in the history of Southern Wells volleyball. I would say that's impressive. Adams Central, Norwell. Adams Central will be heavily favored. On Tuesday, South Adams at Woodland. South Adams coming off a disappointing loss last week against Jay County, highlighted by a somewhat disappointing conference tournament, although they finished third in the tournament behind Woodland and Adams Central. They're going to be taking on the Woodland Warriors in Woodburn. This will be a very intriguing matchup in Woodburn. Woodland does have some size, led by Alyssa Anderson in the middle. They have some good players on the back row, led by McKenna Smith. McKenna is one of the top players in the ACAC. So this should be a very intriguing matchup here. South Adams has Reagan Bollebacher at the outside. They have Anna Lehman in the middle. Reagan Beitler is one of the top setters in all of the ACAC, as well as Lainey Troush. So this should be a fun matchup in Woodburn. Southern Wells at Jay County. I would say a pretty solid week for Jay County, especially when you're able to defeat the South Adams Starfires. I would say that's a pretty good week for them. Hallie Schwederman having a solid year in her sophomore year for the Patriots. You have Maya Kunkel with 49 blocks on the season. You have a nice group of kids that have been overlooked a little bit because of how deep the ACAC is. They'll be taking on the Southern Wells Raiders, who have this dynamic freshman middle by the name of Abby Powell, who's averaging over 5 kills per set. She's got 60 blocks, 60 aces, 214 dids. She's led the team in almost every category all season long. This freshman class at Southern Wells has a bright future ahead of them. And then Heritage is at Bluffton. Don't overlook the Bluffton Tigers. They've been competitive this year. They competed well with South Adams. They almost beat Jay County. They almost beat Woodland. They almost beat Adams Central. Nice. So Bluffton cannot be overlooked. They're going to be at home against the Heritage Patriots. And then on Thursday, Heritage is hosting Jay County, the Battle of the Patriots. So the Patriots should win that match. It's a matter of which Patriots it is. Woodland at Southern Wells. And then you have the ANEC Volleyball Match of the Week, which will decide the Allen County Athletic Conference Championship. Adams Central at 18-5 at South Adams, 20-4. The winner of this game will win the ACAC. I can almost guarantee you that. And so with the Jets, you've got the Henry sisters, Macy and Maddie Henry, having a strong week, including the conference tournament. Paige Hamilton continues to have a strong year in the middle. They're starting to get healthy in the back row, which is nice to hear for the Adams Central Flying Jets. Should be a fun matchup in Bern. Always a great rivalry matchup between the Jets and the Starfires. NECC, we begin with Monday. You have DeKalb hosting Garrett in a DeKalb County rivalry matchup. DeKalb had a couple close games this past week, one which included a 5-set thriller over, I believe, was Huntington North. And so DeKalb had some interesting games this week, to say the least. They're going to look to start off this week on a high note, hosting a young but scrappy Garrett team, and goals hosting Prairie Heights as the Hornets look to wrap up the conference and once again win the NECC. You have Fremont hosting Lakeland, another very interesting matchup in the Northeast Corner Conference. Lakeland's 13-7. Fremont is 15-4. Fremont was swept by Angola, but they had a pretty solid week, no less, led by the outsider and defensive specialist Addie Parr, who has 175 kills to lead Fremont, as well as one of the top leaders in DIDs for Fremont. Delaney has the actual lead on the team with 161 DIDs. Claire Folk with 383 assists. She's very likely going to be playing college volleyball after her high school career. One of the top setters in all of Northeast Indiana. Millennia Miller with 42 aces, I should say. I think she wishes she had 42 blocks, but definitely 42 aces. Harley Wise actually leads the team in blocks with 21. You have Abriana Satterfield, Abriana Satterfield just coming off another triple-double performance against Central Noble in the 4-set win. She's been one of the top players in the NECC all season long as a sophomore. You got another sophomore in Zoe Bowman, and Bowman leads the team in kills with 124. Kara Shack down the middle has 61 blocks. You got Adeline Denny, who recently reached 1,000 DIDs in her career. She also has 31 aces going on with her 306 DIDs on the season. This is going to be a fun matchup. This could go 5 sets, and I'm curious to see which one can come out on top here. It's a big matchup that will help determine some momentum, see where they finish in the conference standings, and prepare for the NECC tournament, which will be less than 2 weeks from now. Westview is Central Noble. That's always an interesting matchup, although Westview will be the favorite in that one. Busco at Angola, probably the last real chance of maybe making this a ball game with Angola in the conference standings. Cherubusco lost a bit from last season, but they still returned quite a bit with Kelsey Coyle, an outside hitter, Michaela Reuter at center. You have Grace Lawson in the libero. You have Gabby Orth in the middle. And so this Busco team looking to compete with the Angola Hornets, who have been a machine for the past several years in the NECC, led by Maya Harris and her 381 kills. Good grief. Angola had a 5-set loss to Homestead on Monday. They did not lose a single match the rest of the week. So Angola is really preparing and ironing their fists, so to speak, getting ready for a tough sectional head in Class 3A. Bailey Holman with 50 blocks. Maya Harris with 80 aces. Good grief. Anna McClure with 250 DIDs. Ava Harris with 621 assists. Ava Harris is the Villanova commit. Maya Harris is going to Illinois after her senior year, which is 2026. Ava Harris is a 2025 senior for the Angola Hornets. That's on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, Fremont at Westview. That's always a tough road trip for anybody going to Westview. That should be an interesting matchup with Westview having Chloe Yoder on that Westview team. You have Kylie Yoder in the libero with 288 DIDs. Cameron Christner has 324 assists. Should be an interesting matchup in Topeka. Fairfield and Central Noble, another intriguing matchup in Albion. Lakeland and Prairie Heights, always a tough battle between the Lakers and the Panthers. And then Busco's at West Noble. Can the West Noble Chargers find enough offense against the size of Cherubusco? At least me hopes that West Noble can at least put a wrinkle on Cherubusco's late season push, as the young Chargers have had a tremendous year by their standards with a 16-5 record up to this point. And then finally, real quick, we go to the Northeast 8, if the internet will so allow me to. We're getting close to the end of the NE8 race. Here we go. So we begin with Monday. I think that's everybody. So actually, we should go ahead and jump to Tuesday. Huntington North and New Haven. Huntington North currently in last place. They're the only team without a win in conference play. They're 0-3 in conference play. New Haven has a win on the season when they swept Columbia City last week. Should be an intriguing matchup down in New Haven. Leo at East Noble. Leo is 20-5 on the season. They were swept by Belmont last Thursday after sweeping the Adams Central Flying Jets a couple of nights prior. Now Leo's going to hope to gain some momentum and get ready for the postseason, taking on a scrappy East Noble team that was competitive against the Belmont Braves on Tuesday. Just couldn't get a set win against the Braves. DeKalb at Columbia City. Usually that's a tough 5-set matchup there in Columbia City. Don't be surprised if this one goes 5 sets. And they got Belmont taking on Norwell in the battle of 8 Mile Creek. But Belmont will be the heavy favorite against a young Norwell team that's had a solid year by their standards, but not to the level of the Belmont Braves, who had a nice tournament run over the weekend. I believe it down at Hamilton Southeastern, to which Craig Kroll won his 600th match as a head coach for the Belmont Lady Braves. Then on Wednesday, Snyder at East Noble. That should be a fun matchup at Kindleville. Snyder has 15 wins on the season. Snyder has been a fun surprise for the Panthers, and much to the same of East Noble. This should be a fun matchup. I don't be surprised if this one goes 4 or 5 sets. And then on Thursday, Leo at Huntington North, East Noble at Columbia City. Another intriguing matchup for the Columbia City Eagles. DeKalb at Belmont. DeKalb hoping to maybe trying to pull an upset special in Decatur, but going to the TP down in Decatur is not an easy task whatsoever for anybody. And the Norwells at New Haven, another intriguing matchup. And I believe this is the final conference slate of the season. No, I'm sorry, because I take that back. I think they have one more on Thursday. So this is the second to last week of the NEA schedule. Next week is when they start to wrap up the NEA, which is also the conclusion of the regular season. All right, I'm back. Let's go ahead and quickly talk about soccer, the upcoming matchups for soccer. We'll begin with boys soccer. By the way, congratulations to the Jay County Patriots, who won the ACAC championship on last Monday with the 3-0 win over Heritage. So Jay County repeats as conference champions. So Monday, Woodland and Heritage off to wrap up conference play in Monroeville. On Tuesday, 10-win Jay County is at Blackford. By the way, both Jay County teams, boys and girls soccer, are nominated or recognized, I should say, for on Performer of the Week. Yao, their goalkeeper, is on the boys' side. On the girls' side, it's Morgan DeHoff. Just want to make sure I let people know ahead of time there. Heritage is at DeKalb on Wednesday, and then concluding the regular season for the ACAC, Jay County is at Liberty Christian on Thursday. Woodland is at New Haven, and then Southside is at Heritage to conclude the ACAC's regular season. We looked at the NECC, and then on Monday, Garrett is at Central Noble. Garrett is on a little bit of a losing streak of late. Central Noble only one win this season. Both teams looking to get a conference win to conclude conference play. Angola, 11-win Angola is at Wayne, who's won 8 games this year. On Tuesday, Lakeland is at Westview. Westview looking to stay in that hunt for the conference championship. And then Lakewood Park is at Angola. Prairie Heights at New Haven, a much improved New Haven squad, no less. And then Bishop Lures, SAC champion Bishop Lures, the first SAC championship in 11 years. 13-1-1 the season, state ranked in their classification. They are hosting the West Noble Chargers, who are 11-4. And then on Thursday, a critical matchup for the conference championship is on the line potentially on Thursday in Ligonier. Westview at West Noble, 6:30 p.m. This has been a classic over the years between the Westview Warriors and the West Noble Chargers, the greatest rivalry in the history of the NECC for soccer. And West Noble right now, it has the lead in the conference standings. They are undefeated in conference play. If they beat the Westview Warriors and win out the rest of their conference games, the Chargers will win the NECC. Westview hopes that if they beat West Noble, that they will be able to share the conference with West Noble and Angola. Angola, by the way, is still very much in play of a conference championship as well. Shifting over to anything left on the Hoosier Plains real quick. Bethany Christian on Monday is taking on Trinity Greenlawn for the Hoosier Plains Championship. Bethany Christian comes in at 8-2-3. On Saturday, they're coming off a 1-1 draw with the Westview Warriors, to which Westview was able to tie it late in the match to get the draw. And then, let's see here. I think there might be one more left for Bethany. Yep, Saturday. This is the matchup that will decide the Hoosier Plains. Bethany Christian is at Argos. I should take that back. This is no longer a conference matchup, but Bethany's at Argos to wrap up the regular season. The Bruins on Monday will play for a conference championship, but the game against Argos will prepare them for the 1A state tournament. And then we quickly want to make sure I bring up the Northeast 8 because there's some critical matchups for the NEA championship. On Monday, New Haven is at East Noble. New Haven's been competitive. They have come close many times, coming up just short a handful of times. East Noble 7-7-1. They've won their last 2 matches. And so East Noble's got an opportunity to get some momentum entering the playoffs, which they are in Class 3A. They're in a very difficult sectional. So any type of success is very much needed for the East Noble Knights. Huntington North, a scrappy Huntington North team, is at Norwell. Huntington North 3-10-2. Norwell is 7-7. They're starting to play better soccer as of late after snapping the 6-game skid. They have now won 3 of their last 4 matches. DeKalb is at Belmont. DeKalb has been struggling of late. They're now 7-5-1. Taking on a 2-win Belmont team. It's been competitive, but they have some struggles of late for the Braves. Scoring has been an issue for Belmont this year. And so this is going to be an interesting matchup down in Decatur. And then here's the matchup that will decide the Northeast State. Columbia City and Leo. Columbia City is 7-3-2 in the season. They actually came off a loss to the Norwell Knights on Saturday, 3-0, to which Kyler Morris had 2 goals in the win for the Norwell Knights. And Kyler Morris is one of the nominees for Performer of the Week at Around the Northeast Corner, just as well as Jonas Shipman of Columbia City. Last season, Columbia City defeated Leo to force a share of the Northeast State. And it looks like we may see something very similar this time around if Columbia City were to find success against the Leo Lions. This time it's at Leo. So Leo's going to have home field advantage this time against the Columbia City Eagles. If Columbia City wins, they and Leo will share the conference. If Leo wins, they are your outright NEA champions. That's as simple as it gets in terms of scenarios for the Northeast States. So that matchup will decide the Northeast State. Columbia City is at Carroll. Another intriguing matchup as Columbia State gets ready for the 3A state tournament for boys soccer. I've already mentioned Prairie Heights, New Haven. And then on Wednesday, Heritage at the Cal. Interesting matchup in Waterloo. Leo is at Homestead. Leo getting ready for the state tournament as well. I believe they are still in Class 2A. And so Leo has an opportunity to go on a deep run in the state tournament. Homestead will be a challenging opponent for the Leo Lions, who are going to be traveling to Homestead. And then Thursday, to wrap up the regular season for the NEA, Columbia City is at Garrett's. Nice way to get things ready for the playoffs. Woodland at New Haven, nice East Allen County school rivalry. Angola at DeKalb, a nice little rivalry down on I-69. And then Blatford and Norwell to conclude the regular season. We shift over to girls soccer real quick. I want to try and hurry up as soon as I can here because I still got to talk about one more thing before we get to our interviews. Starting with Monday for the ACAC, South Adams, Canterbury. South Adams 2 wins on the season. They're coming off a 3-0 loss 2-0 loss, I should say, at the hands of Woodland. On Tuesday, Woodland hosts Heritage. Heritage comes in 4-9-1, a down season for Heritage. Woodland right around 500, 5-7, while Jay County, the new ACAC champions, host Blackford. On Wednesday, Woodland is at Norwell, a nice 9-win Norwell team. And then on Thursday, to wrap up the regular season, Jay County hosts Muncie Central, who's only won 1 match this year. Woodland hosts winless New Haven. Eastbrook, a nice Eastbrook team with 7 wins on the season, hosts South Adams. And then you got the potential NEA champions, Belmont, hosts Heritage. We'll talk about Belmont in a matter of moments. Now we shift over to the NECC on Monday. Garrett hoping to get their first win of the season. They're 0-10. They got to host the Wayne Generals, who have won 3 games this year. Angola hosts Blackhawk Christian. Angola is coming off a 9-0 win over Garrett, to which Carly Gillen had 5 of those goals in the win over the Railroaders. Central Noble, 6-5 on the season. They are traveling to Lakewood Park to take on a very talented Lakewood Park team that's won 12 games this year. Ava Staker with 32 goals for the Lakewood Park Christian Panthers. This has been a dynamic season for the senior for the Lakewood Park Panthers. They have some other talented players on this team as well, led by Luca Bontrader as a freshman. They got Lila West, who's another senior on this Lakewood Park team. Rhea Johnson, a goalkeeper, is another one for the Panthers. So this is a very challenging matchup for Central Noble to take on a very talented Lakewood Park team, which, by the way, they are in the same sectional. So that will be an interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to see what the sectional pairings look like once we get through this episode. On Tuesday, Lakeland's at Westview. Westview hopes to wrap up the conference with a win on Tuesday. West Noble is at LaVille. And then on Wednesday, Central Noble wraps up their conference slate when they take on the Garrett Railroaders on the road. And then Thursday, the next night, they will host Angola on senior night to wrap up the conference. For them, West Noble's at Jimtown. Westview hosts a solid Concord team. And Lakeland's hosting 2-win Mishawaka to conclude the regular season for the NECC, which, by the way, we are expecting Westview to win the conference because they did beat Angola. They dominate Central Noble. Their only match left in terms of conference play is against Lakeland. We expect them to get things wrapped up with the conference championship. Now we get to the NE8 on Monday. East Noble's at New Haven. East Noble 8 wins on the season. Couple times they nearly came away victorious against the Belmont Braves, right? They only lost by 1 goal to Belmont last week, 2-1. They were shut out by the Cal earlier this year, 2-0. They lost to Columbia City 3-2, which East Noble led late in the match, 2-1. But Addie Baxter and Columbia City had other ideas. Belmont is at DeKalb. Belmont 10-2-1. They're traveling to Waterloo to take on a high-powered DeKalb offense that's won 11 matches this year, led by a girl by the name of Jenna Shaner with 23 goals. They got an excellent goalkeeper by the name of Grace Williams. Belmont also has a great goalkeeper by the name of Emily Barton, who filled the shoes of last year's goalkeeper Taylor Lewis. Gwen Laurent leads a scrappy defense-first Belmont squad with 8 goals. She had a big performance last week for the Braves, and she's in the running for Performer of the Week as well for the Braves. Belmont wins. They are the outright NEA champions for the second year in a row. If the Cal wins, there is a share of the NEA championship, which would be with Belmont, Leo, and I think the Cal would have a share as well. And then Leo at Columbia City. Leo, a battle-tested Lions team coming off a 2-0 loss at the hands of Bishop Dwayner, which is ranked in the state tournament for Class 2A. Leo's in 3A this year due to success factor, and Columbia City coming in at 500 at 7-7. Addie Baxter continuing her excellent senior year for the Columbia City Eagles. On Tuesday, East Noble's got a nice road trip up to Middlebury to take on the Northridge Raiders, who are 12-1 and one of the top teams in the state of Indiana. This is an excellent matchup for East Noble to get them ready for the state tournament. New Haven is at Crestview. I assume it's Crestview, Ohio, but no less, New Haven has an interesting matchup there. Norwell, 9 wins on the season. Graceman with another four-goal performance just a couple nights ago, I believe, was against Heritage. I want to make sure I check that real quick just to be sure. That shouldn't take too long. Yeah, it was against Heritage. So now Norwell's going to be taking on Huntington North at Huntington to conclude conference play. Huntington North also has a home match against Marion the next night, along with Norwell hosting Woodland, and then Columbia City hosting Canterbury. And then Thursday, Woodland hosts New Haven. Leo hosts a really good Northup team, 12-1 and 1 in the season. Their only loss in SAC play coming at the hands of Bishop Dwayner, who won the SAC championship for the 20th time in SAC girls soccer history. And then Belmont hosts Heritage. And then Saturday, I think there's just one match left. It's East Noble going to Northside for a Saturday morning matinee game, and that will wrap up the regular season for ANEC Sports for girls soccer here in 2024. Real quick, before we get to our interviews, I do want to mention one other thing here. Cross-country conference meets start this week. So we will have our conference champions crowned this week for the ACAC, the NECC, and the Northeast State for cross-country. So keep your eyes out for some results for the cross-country meets as we are getting close to the state tournament for cross-country, which is just a single-class tournament. All right. So now, with that being said, that was the talk around the corner, a pretty lengthy talk around the corner. And now I will turn loose to our two interviews. Brent Kunkel, the head coach of Bluffton football, and Ryan O'Shea, the head football coach at Lakeland. I'm here with the head football coach of the Bluffton Tigers, Brent Kunkel. Coach, thank you for coming on the show, and how are things going for you and your team?
Pretty good. Obviously excited about the start that we've had to start this year. Being 6-0, anytime you can come out 6 times, win 6 of them, pretty happy about that. Obviously, big test coming this week against Heritage and beyond. The schedule picks up a little bit, but really happy with the way the guys have responded to some adversity we faced this year as a team, and feel like we're in a good spot. Heading here into the big game against Heritage, week 7.
We'll talk about that game in a matter of moments, but I want to go back to the transition from last year to this year. So last year, your team went 10-3, one of the best seasons in the history of the program. You won a sectional championship for the second year in a row, lost to Bishop Lures and Regionals, who ended up going to win the whole thing in Class 2A. Coach, when you transitioned to this year, obviously you graduated a big class from that previous season. What did you like about this team going into the season?
Just the fact that, we had a bunch of young, hungry kids. That senior class that just graduated, we had 16 of them, and a lot of them been 2-year starters, some even 3-year starters. And they had kind of just carried our program, obviously, for the 2 and 3 years, obviously winning back-to-back sectional championships. But what you saw behind them, was a group of young kids who were excited for their opportunity. They were at the point where they wanted to get on the field on Friday nights. So we really liked our skill kids coming in that we had seen develop throughout the program, from middle school on up to JV team last year. So we were excited for them to get their opportunity to get out and play. Those kids were excited for their opportunities. So we just kind of saw this hunger and this desire to want to go out and be good and kind of carry on what the senior class from last year was able to start with our program. So, I mean, it wasn't anything real special. We saw these kids who wanted an opportunity, and we were excited for them to get it.
Yeah. And I think one of the key areas to talk about is at quarterback. So last year, you had Braxton Betancourt, multi-sport athlete at Bluffton, really good baseball player for the Bluffton Tigers on the mound. You bring in Aston Best, who's only a sophomore, and there's a lot of sophomores on this Bluffton team that are very talented. But Best brings a different flavor to this Bluffton football team. Coach, when you look at Aston Best with his mobility and the way he sees the field, what are some things that you can assess about what Aston Best brings to the Bluffton program?
Yeah, he's a very dynamic player. He does a lot of things for us. Obviously, first and foremost, being a sophomore, stepping in there, but he commands the huddle. He was elected a team captain this year. We let our team pick their captains, and as a sophomore, he stepped in and got a very high percentage of the vote from our football teams. That kind of speaks what the guys on the team think about Axton, and he does things the right way. He's always prepared. He's always ready. He is the guy who is getting guys motivated, whether we're running sprints. He's the guy getting the guys motivated. If we have a bad play, receiver drops a pass, he's picking them up. So he does all the little things that you want to have in a quarterback. He does them surprisingly well for being as young as he is. What he brings to us on the field, obviously he gives us the ability to throw the ball, maybe a little bit more than we have in the previous couple years. Braxton was a phenomenal athlete for us, probably might be the all-time winningest quarterback in school history. But we had a very dynamic running attack. He was a big part of that. This year, we've been able to spread things out a little bit more, get the ball in space a little bit more. Axton's seeing the field really well. He's close to 80% completion percentage, which is crazy to think about heading into week 7. So Axton just kind of gives us another dynamic. We can spread the ball around a little bit more to our receivers, but he also is our leading rusher right now. So he's done a lot of things with his legs to kind of keep teams honest.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at this Bluffton team, obviously there are still some returnees at backfield of Cooper Craig, who was a freshman last year and took a big chunk of that backfield when Camille Moore was out with an injury. You have both of them back this season. You have a nice wide receiver and free safety in Aaron Streveler. He's been a nice receiver on that Bluffton team, and you still got a good line that's going to emphasize and be able to stop the run and whatnot and get after people. Who are some other guys that have stepped up into that quote unquote captaincy role for this Bluffton team?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Griffin Morgan is the only returning starter we had coming back this year in our defense, and he's our inside linebacker. For my money, he's the best linebacker in our league. I know there's some talented kids on Heritage that we're facing this week. There's a very talented kid on Adams Central that we'll see a week from now. But Griffin does it all for us. He is the quarterback of our defense. There's been situations this year and times this year where he's essentially called the defense based on what he sees out on the field. So starting with him, Draven Shoemaker was our one returning offensive lineman, and he kind of played spot duty at times last year. We went a lot of unbalanced, so he saw the field a lot, but never in that starting role. He's really nailed down that right tackle spot. Tavin Freeze, another senior, right beside him at the right guard positions, kind of solidified that right side line. We're only playing 2 seniors on our team right now who are getting meaningful reps on Friday nights. So those 2 have really stepped up. Griffin, and on the back end of our defense, a kid like Aaron Jessup. He's been a safety for us this year. All 4 of our DBs don't really play offense, so it's kind of nice to have that group together. But Aaron Jessup's kind of the captain or quarterback back there, kind of getting guys set. So it's kind of been good to see him come into his own and find his voice a little bit. So it's kind of just been one of those things. Like I said, we had hungry kids coming in, and they've kind of just taken the reins of the team and kind of run with it.
Mm-hmm. Before we talk about the Heritage game, I do want to briefly highlight the schedule up to this point. You obviously beat Blackhawk and Manchester to start the year. Dominant win against South Adams, which I think a lot of people thought it might have been a competitive game at times, but that was a tremendous performance by the Bluffton Tigers, especially Aston Best quarterback. Nice win over the Woodland Warriors the following week. And then you had that game against Jay County. And Jay County's always been kind of an interesting wild card team. You don't know what to expect with Jay County. And they gave you guys a bit of a fight in that. I think it was your homecoming game, which was against Jay County. Talk about how you were able to overcome that slow start and be able to pull away with a win.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. There's always that one team on your schedule that you play that weird stuff always happens. And for whatever reason, Jay County's always been that team for us. Going back, 5-6 years ago, we played a homecoming game against Jay County, and it was 62-63, and it was and not in overtime. You know what I mean? So you had 125 points scored in 48 minutes. So it's always like that with us in Jay County for whatever reason. But Coach Zagunda, he's a Hall of Famer, man. I mean, he's a class act in every sense of the word, and he had his team ready. They did some things on the inside of their defense that gave us some problems. I mean, we're starting a freshman right now at left guard, and that was really the first game that he was kind of exposed a little bit to some things that he hadn't seen a whole lot. They brought some pressures that maybe we hadn't really repped in practice or weren't quite ready for. So, and they got some talented kids. I mean, the number 20, I space on names. I remember numbers. So no offense, number 20, if you hear this, but he's a tall, lanky receiver, got loose a couple of times. Our quarterback, number 4, is a 3-year starter. They're very well-coached team, but you look at our league and the teams that we play, it's not really a surprise you're going to have a close game here and there. I really think the ACAC as a whole has elevated itself in really the past 7-8 years since I've been the head coach here. So we preach there's no off weeks. We had a game this past Friday against a county rival. That maybe the score looks like it was an easy game, but that's a tough game for us because that's the only team we get to play in the county. So we know how seriously they take that game and how much we want to win that one as well. So. Like I said, I'm just really happy with our team and the start that we've had and kind of the mental toughness they've shown throughout against these tough teams.
So let's look ahead to the matchup against Heritage, which will be the ACAC game of the weekend around the northeast corner. Heritage was the underdog last year when you went to Heritage for that game, and Heritage beat you guys by 6 points. Okay, that's what the media pundits were saying. Anyway. Yeah. Back to my point right here. So Heritage beat your team last year 27-21, which was a huge win for the Heritage Patriots by that point. Now Heritage comes in and they're about just as good as you guys are right now. They lost a lot of seniors the previous season, but they reloaded a bunch back. And with under Coach Hollinger, you got Eli Tagul as a quarterback who, just like Bess, he's a guy that can throw the football really well. They got Nasir Martin that can do things in the backfield. Brandon Walters, an excellent receiver and corner, right? And you got Litchfield at tight end. They got some big boys up front, especially with a guy like Charlie Riddle on the offensive line. Coach, when you look at this Heritage team, what are some things that stand out about Heritage that your team's going to have to excel this week?
Yeah, I mean, you hit a lot of the key points. Obviously last year's game was a great game. It was a great high school football game. It came down to a couple plays throughout the course of the game. We gave up a punt return and came back and took the lead 20-21, and the Kobe Myers show happened. So we're not sad that Kobe's gone by any stretch of the imagination. So, but yeah, you mentioned a lot of their really good players they have. I think that Charlie Riddle, is probably the best offensive lineman in our league this year, and maybe one of the best in all of Indiana when you really kind of break it down. He's just so physical, so skilled, so quick. I'm sure they'll play him on defense against us some a little bit this week too, which presents a big time challenge for us. Walter on the back end, number 12. He's the best safety defensive back I would say that we have in our league. He's the fastest kid in our conference. He's a track runner. So I know him from watching him in the spring. So we got to know where he's at all times. You mentioned the running back, number 5. I think it's his first year playing this year, and he's very dynamic with the ball in his hands. And Tagulis, playing receiver past couple years behind Kobe, playing quarterback now, really has a command of that offense. He's very accurate with the football, doesn't tend to really make any mistakes throwing it. So it's a very unique challenge for us, and it's one of those games where there's a lot of familiarity between the teams. Obviously Coach Kolkman being with Heritage last year and now on our staff here at Bluffton now. So I'm sure there'll be a little extra added motivation for the Heritage football players. Not that they need it, going up against us this week, but these are the kind of games you want to be in. We're really excited about the opportunity. We had to travel up there last year. They get to come to us this year, and there's something on the line. We win this one, you play for a conference title next week. You lose this one, you still got a chance to share the conference title. You go against AC, and obviously Heritage wants to win this game to keep their conference title hopes alive as well. So these are the games you want to be in as a player and as a coach. So we're looking forward to it a lot.
Mm-hmm. And as you look at your schedule, we're about to approach October, so that means we're getting close to that second season everybody talks about, which is the playoffs, right? And the sectional draw is going to be here before you know it. You got this game that's Heritage this week. You got the Adams Central game next week, which I believe you're going to Adams Central this time. Yes.
Correct.
And then your senior night is a very interesting senior night home game for your team because you're playing Franklin County in week number 9. Coach, as you get ready and start preparing for the playoffs, which has Adams Central in your sectional this time, how do you continue to work on the things your team needs to do for your team to be in the best position to be ready for the playoffs?
I mean, it just starts with what you do in practice, what you prioritize in practice. We have a philosophy, the most important play is the next play. So we talk to our guys all the time about being present in the moment. We're not playing Adams Central this week. We're not playing Franklin County this week. We're not playing in the playoffs this week. We're playing Heritage. So all that we're doing is focused on playing Heritage and trying to come up with a way to beat Heritage. And then those other things will be there later on. But you want to continue to focus on your fundamentals. Obviously, when you get to this point in the season, the team with better fundamentals tends to win more football games, taking care of the football, prioritizing those types of things. So, we're excited about the next couple of weeks. Obviously very happy to be 6-0, but understanding, the back end of our schedule is significantly more difficult when you look at the teams that we are getting ready to play. So we're excited for the opportunity. I keep saying that, but this is a big game Friday, and we'll keep trying to focus on the things that we can control, focus on trying to get better each and every snap, doing our assignments, obviously hopefully playing our best football here, in 3 weeks.
Final question for me, Coach. You've been around this program for quite some time. This is your 8th season at Bluffton, at least coaching football. You also coached the boys track and field team during the spring season, and there's been a lot of success on both programs. You're the winningest football coach of all time at Bluffton High School, which is over 100 years of Bluffton history, the most successful run in the history of the program. How much do you appreciate this now, looking back at where it's been up to this point?
Yeah, it's one of those things. We played our Woodland, our home game, our first home game of the year this year. And I made all the coaches, during the game, I got on the headset and said, hey, take a second, turn around and look up. And the stands were packed. I mean, there wasn't an empty seat in the stands. We got guys hanging out on the fence and everything. And it's a testament to how far this program has really come, and I'm just a guy, I'm not going to take any credit for anything. There's several guys before me, including, Coach Kolkman. I started coaching with him at Bluffton 14 years ago. I was one of his assistants, and then he left, and I kind of came in after the coach after him, coach after the coach after him. Right. So, but it's just really a testament to trying everybody in the community get on the same page. It's one thing we talk about being a family, whether that's, your family at home, but then the family within our football program. And we've got people who are bought in. Our administration's bought in, our booster club's bought in, coaches' wives are all bought in, families are bought in. So when you've got that and you've got that support system, it's really, really exciting to see a whole community come together. So we've got a long way to go. I think the envy of our league, if I could be anybody, would be, I want to be Adams Central in 40 years, you know what I mean? Where they've just got a machine going. I think we're building to that point, but we're several years behind them. So we like where we started, obviously a long way to go, but obviously you'll reflect back someday, maybe at the end of the season, look at the progress the program's made and feel happy about it.
This is Brent Kunkel, the head football coach of the Bluffton Tigers, as they take on the Heritage Patriots in week 7. Can't believe it's week 7 of this season.
It's
It goes by
crazy.
way too fast. Coach, final thoughts before we let you go this evening.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really nice to meet the legend, Sam Frick. I follow you on Twitter, so now it's nice to finally have a conversation with you. But appreciate the work that you do, man. I mean, you're out there grinding. You're tweeting and following everything from high school football to golf to volleyball to all those kind of things. So really appreciate the work that you do, man, and appreciate the coverage you give us.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much, and good luck to you and your team as you take on the Heritage Patriots in week 7.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
I'm here with the head football coach of the Lakeland Lakers, Ryan O'Shea. Coach, good evening. Thank you for taking the time to talk about the Lakers. How are things going for you and your team?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, Sam.
Yep. Before we talk about this week, let's talk about the transition from last year to this year. Obviously, last season, your team had a tremendous season considering where the team was at that point. You won 6 games that season, came very close of winning the conference championship, came up just short against Garrett and West Snowball in the process. Coach, when you look at where the team was last year to this year, what are some things that brought some hope for the Lakers as you return a lot back going into this season?
Yeah, last year we were a little under the radar. We knew we had some talent, but a lot of that talent were underclassmen. We had a lot of sophomores and juniors that contributed a lot, and we were under the radar. But at the same time, we knew we had some good players, and it just took us realizing that we were good players towards the we figured out at the beginning of the season we upset St. Joe in week 1, and that was huge for us. And from then on out, those kids believed like, hey, we're a good football team. So the difference between last year, this year, this year there's expectations, and those expectations have followed us ever since we took the first snap on Friday night in week 1. We were expected to win that St. Joe game. We were expected to do what we have done to this point. And so handling those expectations is what's been the difference, in handling the weight of the world sometimes on your shoulders for those kids that are now juniors and seniors has been the battle. It's been more of a mental battle than it has been a physical battle, because I think the physical side of it, we're fine. We're okay. It's just the mental side of it, and understanding how to handle how to handle the target on your back is what we're trying to battle through. So that's been the biggest difference is, hey, now it's expected. Now we're supposed to be here. We're supposed to be 5-1. And last year was like, hey, this little scrappy Lakeland team's 5-1. Where'd they come from? Now it's like, oh yeah, they did that last year. So, we've got to, fight through those demons a little bit.
Yeah. And when you look at the schedule so far for your team, it's been a defense really that's been kind of standing out for me so far for Lakeland. The 21-20 win over St. Joe, which you actually were up more than that early on the game. You beat Busco, Prairie Heights. Tough loss to Garrett, but I think your team learned a lot from that game against Garrett. Yep. But then the Angola game, the defense really stole the spotlight in that game against Angola. And then Central Noble was a dominant performance for your team. Coach, this team has really shown improvement over the years on the defense side. We know they're capable on the offensive side of the ball, but the defense has shown a lot of improvement over the years, especially with Keener Royal having a big say on the defense side and Levi Cook leading stats.
Yeah, our defense has come a long way, and I give a lot of credit to Trent Calley, who's our defensive coordinator. He's done a heck of a job. He's now in his second year calling the defense, and he's done a really good job scouting other teams and figuring out what they do well and trying to take away what they do well. Obviously we had a bad night against Garrett a couple weeks ago, and things like that happens. They're high school kids. They're 16, 17 years old. It happens. But we did learn a lot. There's a lot of things that we did in that game that we won't go back to. But at the same time, we've got excellent players on that side of the ball. And it just so happened last year, we graduated a few inside linebackers in Cam Riegling and Bo Kearns, but we replaced them with Carson Mickham and Drandon Miller, and they've been outstanding at inside backer. And then obviously Keener Royal now has, I think 6 interceptions on the year with 2 pick sixes, and that kid's just an unbelievable player. I've been coaching for 14 years, and that kid is up there in the top 5 of kids I've ever coached. He's awesome. And then, like you said, with Levi Cook coming off the edge, he's got sneaky speed, but his size is what helps him out. He's 6'2", 190, 195 pounds. And, a kid coming off the edge like that, running the speed that he does, surprises some teams. So, we do a really good job understanding what our assignments are. We're aggressive. We're not passive as far as our reads go. We see the ball and we fly. And those kids do a heck of a job and have bought into our system and bought into Coach Callie and what he's been teaching. And that has been a big difference for us. Last year it was the offense and trying to outscore teams. That Busco game comes to mind again, 61-39 or whatever it was. And, trying to outscore teams. And sometimes if you have a bad night offensively and you're trying to outscore teams, that's going to be bad news for you. But that's been a huge improvement for us. The loss of our backfield with Sean Conley obviously was big for us, but understanding that we can still win football games if we have an excellent defense, and so that's what these kids have bought into this year. And I'm super proud of them, and they cause a lot of turnovers, a lot of havoc. That's been a driving force for us this year so far. It's been our defense.
Mm-hmm. And then you got a lot of guys back there, 3 or 4 year starters at Lakeland. And you still don't have a lot of seniors on this team. You think about it, it's still a junior heavy team. So it's be Braden Holbrook and Levi Cook. You got Keaton Merrifield, I believe Arroyo's a junior now. Yep. At Lakeland as well. You do have some seniors on the team led by, most notably with Carson Mickham. How are the seniors been? How do they play a role into the way in which this season has went for the Lakers on and off the field?
Well, our juniors and seniors are a really close knit group themselves. They intermix. There's no class warfare here at all. These juniors and seniors love hanging out with each other, and that's a beautiful part of it. It's great to see. The seniors understand. We've got 4 captains in Owen Oakley and Chuck Shacko and like the aforementioned Drana Miller and Carson Mickham. Those 4 are our captains, but everybody understands that anybody can lead. Anybody can step up on any Friday night and lead us. And Kean's shown that, Levi's shown that, Braden's shown that. Those guys. Nobody really cares who gets the credit, and that's the best part. That leadership and that intermixing, and not having the battle for the leadership is big for our team.
Mm-hmm. Take me through the experience of being able to coach on Friday nights as opposed to coaching in practice, because there's a big difference there. And I think what you're telling me here is that with this team, the way they're cohesive with each other, it becomes easier to coach Friday nights because of that.
Yeah. Obviously in practice, you're trying to teach and make your kids understand what their assignments are, make them understand what we're trying to take advantage of, offensively and defensively, the other team does well or doesn't do well. And, during the week, it's a little more laid back as far as, practice goes compared to a game. I mean, it's not laid back compared to, say a math class or anything like that, but it's, it's more teaching. It's more focused on doing the right thing during the week. And so that way, Friday night, it translates. Now on Friday night with this group that we have right now, it's really easy to coach them on Friday night because we can make adjustments and do things. And we kind of talk the same language. A few years ago, we couldn't do that. A few years ago, those players were still trying to figure out what I'm talking about when I say, certain things. But this group has been around me. The senior group had me as their 8th grade math teacher when, back 5 years ago. And this junior class had me as a 7th grade teacher 5 years ago. And so they've been around me a lot, and they understand what I expect. They understand what our staff expects of them, and making those adjustments and in game has been absolutely huge. We couldn't do it without them understanding the game as well as they do. And that's the other thing that this team kind of hangs their hat on. Like we're pretty football smart, and we understand what our assignments are. We understand how football works, and we can make those adjustments in game. Our offensive line comes to mind there, and they do a really good job making adjustments themselves. So, that's the difference between during the week and then on Friday nights. During the week, it's teach. Friday nights, it's adjust.
Mhm. This is Ryan O'Shea, the head football coach of the Lakeland Lakers, as they prepare for a matchup against the West Snowball Chargers in Week 7. I believe that's your homecoming game, if I recall, for the Lakeland Lakers. A big matchup for you as you take on the Chargers, who are coming off a loss to Garrett in Week 6. You know this is a critical game, not just for your team, but also for West Snowball in terms of keeping their hopes alive in the divisional race. Last year, this game went to overtime in Ligonier, 35-34. And right as I say that, I bring bad memories down in your brain right now as I brought that down to my inner existence here. Coach, any thoughts? Obviously, with West Snowball, they brought a lot back. Obviously, they have a new quarterback in Trace Schisler, but a lot about West Snowball from last year isn't that much different from this year, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for us. I mean, it's like we're playing the game all over again. It's just a repeat. Fortunately for us, it's not homecoming, so that's good. Don't have those distractions this week. We had that a couple weeks ago against Angola, but West Noble is West Noble. Seth Pruitt is an outstanding football player. He's one of the best to ever put that uniform on. Mikhail Bottles is a really good football player, and so is their offensive line, and their linebackers fly around. Their secondary is also very impressive. Their secondary is one of the best ones that we'll see this year. So they're a good football team. Coach Mayor's a really good coach and a good friend of mine, and he's done a really good job with them, obviously, over the 20 plus years he's been there. And what stands out to me, them as a team is, they do what they do, and they do it well. They give the ball to Pruitt and let him run. When you key on that, then they're going to throw it. And then when you key on that, then they're going to give it to somebody else like Macias or Bottles, and then you're in trouble there. So, you almost want to have 12 out on the field on defense against them. But at the same time, I trust our guys, and I know our guys are going to be ready to go Friday night and up for the challenge. Bad memories last year, over time, but at the same time, I think that's when we figured out that, hey, we're still a pretty good football team. We can still do some stuff and make some noise later on. Unfortunately, we Drew Knox, who's ended up in semi-state in week 1 of the playoffs, but those things happen. It went to overtime, and the year before that, it was 7-6, and we scored with 18 seconds to go in the game, and went for 2, and just had the ball go right between Owen Troyer's arms, and still see that memory in my brain as well. So the last 2 years, it's been a 1-point thriller down to the last play, and so I expect nothing less Friday night. I mean, why not? I mean, it's what's been the last. Even 3 years ago before that, I think it was a 14-11 game back in 2021. So, I mean, it's been a close game. If you are a betting man, I mean, why would you expect anything less?
No. And this has been the hottest rivalry in the NECC right now because of that. And also, I want to mention, too, for West Snowball, they got a guy by the name of Richardson, who's also been involved in the run game as well. So that's another matchup you got to worry about as well because of the other guys they got to worry about. And also on the other side of the field, West Snowball's got a lot of big boys on that defense, and it's going to be a challenge for your team to be able to generate enough offense. What's one area your team will need to have a good enough performance for your team to have an opportunity to win this game? I would imagine defense would have to be a big emphasis again.
Oh, of course. I mean, defense is always going to be the thing. But also at the same time, on the offensive side of the ball, we've got to take care of it. Make sure we don't have any dumb turnovers, and we got to make sure that we're not giving them an opportunity inside the plus territory, and making sure that they don't get the ball and be able to give the ball Pruitt one time and he scores. Because that's a very real thing. If you turn the ball over in minus territory and give them an opportunity from very, very close in. So, you got to take care of the football and execute. The thing that Garrett did really well last week was keep the ball away from West Noble. They did a really good job keeping the ball out of Pruitt's hands. I think he only carried the ball 15 times. And so, that's a recipe for success if you're trying to beat them, trying to, limit their possessions. But I mean, that's the recipe for success against anybody. If you limit possessions and make sure that they don't touch the ball a whole lot of times, then you got an opportunity to win. We kind of did that against Angola a couple weeks ago. We had a 9-minute drive. And so we can do that. It's just going to take us doing it on a consistent basis and executing in the red zone, and making sure that, our kids are engaged and making sure that they make the right adjustments. And I think, if they do that, then, that gives us a chance, and that's all we can ask for.
And also, where they know with Seth Pruitt, he only ran for 33 yards, which has only happened 5 times in his career. That he's rushed, I believe, just under 100 yards in his entire career, or under 50 yards in his entire career, I should say. Coach, one final question from me, and I know I don't want to give too much away in terms of in terms of the rest of the season and whatnot. And I know you're going to tell me we got to take this one game at a time, but we're getting close to the postseason time. Sectional draw will be here before you know it. As you get close to the final games of the regular season, is this more about just taking care of the little things and just making sure we're focusing on us? Or is this more of just we need to work on this area here or this area there on each side of the ball?
I'm going to give you the coach talk. I mean, it's both. It's we got to get better at what we do. That's number one. We got to get better at what we do. There's no magical plays out there that are going to win us games on Friday nights. They don't exist. We got to do what we got to do and do it well. We got to focus on us and get better. But at the same time, try to do things that take advantage of the other team. And with West Noble, unfortunately, it's not going to be for the conference championship. But at the same time, we fully expect that we could see them at any point in the playoffs, and that we want to be able to do things and do them well and have success. So that way our kids are confident going into sectionals. So it's one of those things where, you got to work on yourself. But at the same time, you're trying to take care of the other team. But at the same time, you're looking at every single Friday night's important. These seniors only get, 10 games guaranteed. And if you waste one of those opportunities, then, that's one of those opportunities that those seniors don't get back. And so, we would take advantage of our opportunities on Friday nights, no matter who we're playing. It doesn't matter. We want to be able to have success and do things well and do things the way we're taught. And go out there and compete.
All right, Coach. Final thoughts before we let you go this evening.
I appreciate you having us on, and looking forward to a nice atmosphere on Friday night. And it's going to be a fun time whenever our two schools get together. And we don't have an official rivalry trophy, but maybe we should. Maybe someday we'll get that together. But it's going to be a fun time, and I hope everybody comes out and supports either team. And if you don't like either team, then you can sit in the middle and watch a good football game.
How about this? We make our trophy and call it the boat trophy game, right? Right, because we're in Lates, where you're at in Lakeland, called the boat trophy. Just have a wooden boat trophy.
Hey, playing for the wooden boat, I have to run that by Coach Mayweather. I think that might be a really good idea.
All right, Coach. Thank you for taking the time, and good luck in your matchup against the West Noble Chargers.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, we're back. I would like to thank our two football coaches that came in tonight, Brent Kunkel of the Bluffton Tigers and Ryan O'Shea of the Lakeland Lakers, as they get set to take on their upcoming matchups in Week 7. Bluffton hosting Heritage for the ACAC game of the week, and Lakeland hosting West Noble, which, as O'Shea corrected, that is not homecoming. My fault on that part, but no less, still a huge matchup for the Lakers as they take on the West Noble Chargers. So, when this episode's done and concluded, we will know our soccer pairings. Also want to give a quick reminder that there will be an additional post breaking down the area soccer sectionals so that you are aware of what's to come for the state tournament for soccer. Also, next weekend will be the sectional pairings for girls volleyball, as that next week will be the final week of the regular season. And then the weekend after that will be the football state pairings. So, as you can see at the time of this post, it's September 29th at the time of recording this, 8:02 p.m. By the end of this week, we will be going into October, which means we will be less than 2 weeks away from the first practices for girls basketball, which means we will be getting to basketball season in just over 2 months from now. Crazy enough, it's flying by so fast. And we have now officially went past 10 episodes of the ANEC Sports Podcast, and our YouTube page continues to grow each and every day. Hopefully, as we get to more downtime with sports coverage for the fall sports season, I would have some time to resume our history videos as well. So hopefully we get back to those history videos, talk about the history of the NEA, maybe update the ACAC as well with the history records as well. So hopefully with some spare time, I can do some history videos still as well. But no less, the fall season is officially towards the last laps of the season. Playoffs are going to be will soon be here for football and volleyball, and soccer will be here next week for the playoffs. So that will do it. My name is Sam Frick. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner, and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner, and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.